Well, you say in your memoir, which, by the way, is such a great book that came out last year, Life in Parts, just everything that you want a memoir to be. You talk a lot and share a lot of anecdotes about the shows that you've been in, the projects, but also a lot of personal detail that I think really, it tells us a lot about you. It tells us a lot about the things that you've chosen. So I highly recommend the book.
Thank you.
But one of the things you say in that is that the soap opera experience, especially on Loving, which was a couple of years long for you, it's still one of your proudest acting experiences. Why is that? Because
there was something about moving to New York to do that show in 1983, in January of 1983, that just gave me a sense that I belonged. Before that, I was struggling and a job here and there, pick and choosing and doing survival jobs as one does. And for some reason, when I got that job, I knew that I was an actor for the rest of my life. I don't know why. There was a threshold that I crossed, and I think it was just emotional, that I just accepted that I could do this, and I'm going to be doing it for the rest of my life, and that was, yeah, a long time ago. So.
What is something from, because as you said, soap acting is such a different thing. It's an incredible amount of work every single day and all of those episodes that you're doing every week. What's something from that experience that's still with you, that still sticks with you?
Getting fired. Yeah, there were so many people fired off that show that we started, instead of Loving, we called it Leaving. And there was a guy named Joe. I wrote about this in the book because it was a very seminal time in my life. And I was thinking of, after 2 years, I was going to leave and do other things, because you could get kind of caught in a trap if you stay too long, and I wanted to explore other possibilities. So I was planning to leave until I was fired. And then it was like, no! It was almost like a girlfriend. I'm gonna break up with her. I've had it, I'm not gonna. And she says, I wanna talk to you, I don't wanna see you anymore. It's like, no, please, we can make it, no! You just don't wanna be on that other side. And so I was embarrassed because I didn't know what he was gonna do. He brought the woman who was playing my wife on the show at the time, he brought us in, and it was so quick. Hello, come on in, have a seat. I sat down, and as I'm sitting down, he did too, and said, we appreciate the contributions that you made to the show, but we've decided to go in a different direction, and your services will no longer be needed. And he stood up and pointed that. So that's how quick it was. It was like, oh. And I stood up, I shook his hand, and I said, thank you. And then walking to the elevator, I went, why did I say thank you? I said thank you. The man just coldly fired me, and I shook his hand and said thank you. Ah. But I was so caught, I was a deer in headlights. It was so surprising to me. And for the next day, I was really depressed. I was filled with self-pity, and the woe is me. It was on my shoulders, and that was a Saturday. And then Sunday, I said, that's enough. Get out and do something. I lived in New York, so I grabbed my camera and a bunch of film, and I walked into Central Park, and it was marathon day. And at first I went, oh, great, all these people here. I can't take pictures. I want to feel bad for myself. And then I started seeing the runners come in, and oh, well, that's kind of interesting. And I started taking pictures, and I stayed there for almost 6 hours and watched everybody, the sea of humanity just coming through. And it just inspired me to say, this is a bump. This is not my life. So I said, I'm going to run in that race next year. And I was not a runner. I didn't run. I didn't like to run. So to hear myself say, I'm going to run in that race, it was only because the line before it was, I could never do that. And I caught myself and saying, why can't I do that? I was a young guy. Why can't I do that? Well, because you hate it. That's why. That's why I'm on. And so I just, I did, and I ran in the race the following year.
Wow. So lots of good things came out of Loving then.
Yeah, it was, you know,
Yeah.
it's a ride, but it was, and it was a great time for me, and a great time to be in New York for a single guy, and I was having a wonderful experience. And to be honest with you, shooting Breaking Bad was not all that fun. I mean, it was a lot of tension a lot of the time. I think it must have been with, it could have been probably with Aaron Paul, who he and I just bonded very closely together, and I don't remember any specific scene that was like, this is just so much fun what we're doing right now. We're out in the middle of the desert and it's hot and it's sticky, and it's much more fun. Here's the difference between doing theater and doing movies and television. Doing theater, you're experiencing the fun while you're doing it, and you're exhausted later. With film and television, you're exhausted while you're doing it, and you're having the fun later.
Someone write that down.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because that's a really good point.
It's a really great point.
Yeah. So it's in film and television, it's the bits and pieces business. Every day we do little bits and little pieces, little bits and little pieces, and you don't necessarily have a grand time every time you go to work. It is your job, and you're a professional, and you go to work and you do your work. And then it's after the fact that you see it all together. It's like, oh wow, what a great compilation that was. Anyway, I hope I skirted that answer quickly enough to get away to another one.
Question?
And in the purple shirt.
Purple shirt,
Anybody
yeah.
else? Purple shirt.
You.
Feelings. Oh, well, thank you. This was a great presentation. It was very emotional. I wasn't expecting that. It's hard for me to believe that you're Walter White, you know, with so much feeling. And now that you can be so selective, is there a specific role or some franchise that you know always wanted to do and wouldn't say no to?
Burger King. I'd like a Burger King franchise, I think.
You know, like being in the Star Wars movie or something like that. Not that you would want to be in Star Wars, but something that you've always wanted to do.
You know, I don't have any designs. You know, my father was an actor, and his whole point was that he needed to be a star. And it really hurt him. It stunted his ability to enjoy life, because it created this determined drive that was detrimental to a lot of elements of his life. And I think I learned from that, and I pulled back from that completely. The best thing that happened to me was when I was on that soap opera. When I was 25 years old, and from that point on, it became I'm 62 now. And that was the best thing, because I became an actor, and that's what I can honestly say and proudly say, that that's what I do for a living. It matters not to me how much I make. I don't really ask how much money I make on any given project. We have agents who do that, and we want them to be happy. We do, and that's great. But I don't have any like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm so grateful that I can make a living as an actor, so I just take one step at a time and seeing what's available, and knowing that I don't want to commit to doing something just for the sake of acting. Because if you do, and you commit to something, it's like dating someone you really are not involved with, and then all of a sudden the person you really would love to date is here, but you can't. And it really hurts anyway, because I've been married for 30 years. Marriage has cut into my dating significantly. Like half. My wife is here, and she's smirking at the time. She's like...
So I guess the real question is, I guess 1 to 10, in all honesty, were you satisfied with the Breaking Bad finale? And
10.
How it...
I loved it. It crushed it for me.
Perfect 10?
It was surprising, and that's the thing that even being in that show and in that character, he always managed to surprise me. And it was like reading a gift every time we got to open up and go through those scripts. I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know how to react to it. I thought it was a perfect ending. And that is why when I'm asked, do you ever miss playing Walter White, the answer is no. I don't miss playing that character because of the fact that it was such a perfect beginning, middle, and end for me. And I don't want to, it feels like if you went to a restaurant and you had the perfect meal and you're satiated and you want to push back and everything was just perfect and they bring more food. Okay, and you start maybe, and then it's like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. I wish it was perfect. I don't want to reopen something. That being said, the other question that gets asked me a lot is, would you be on Better Call Saul? And the answer would be yes, simply because if Vince Gilligan, who changed my professional life, wanted me to do it, I'd wash his car. He would just ask me to do something and say, yes, I will do it. And knowing how careful he takes pride in his characters and in his stories, it wouldn't be something that was frivolous or non-germane to the stories.
So people would watch that show. Bryan Cranston washes Vince Gilligan's car.
Yeah,
that would be. I mean, someone would watch on Lifetime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whole different audience.
Raising money for a local high school.
Yeah.
Bryan
Chicka bow wow.
The branding is so off on that.